Are you thinking of a rewarding investment you can engage in? Waylead Company Limited is your preferred choice for such an investment. I'll tell you more about Waylead Company in the course of the show because there's so much more to bring to bear on that. But they, thankfully, are sponsoring us. Let's get into the news review now. And joining me in the studio, Kwame Nkrumah Botsio. He is General Secretary of the CPP. Should I add the other one? Oh, let me add it. Oh, just for this morning.
Okay.
So we know Honorable Kubash. And we also have former president of the Ghana Journalists Association in the person of, I'll not mention the R1. I feel money. I'm being very mischievous this morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, great Ben.
Thank you for joining the conversation.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
And you're looking good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take your quick thoughts on some of these developments that have been with us over the last week. I mean, there's so much to discuss, isn't it?
So much disease cycle.
There's the airport saga, whether someone is telling the truth or not. Where's your evidence? This morning, I mean, from yesterday, some residents of Asin South standing behind their MP, Reverend Intim Fojo. Others also saying, hey, do you have a clerical caller? Where's the truth? And everything in between. Then we have Boku.
So Benny,
that's
precious life.
I mean, there are so many things. We can't even, I don't know where to start, but I'll leave it to you, gentlemen, to do that. I'll start with you, Afil Moni.
I will take a brief look at the confluence of issues of gargantuan proportions, nationally and internationally, which are dominating the media space. And these issues, as you touch on, relate to the seizure of the biggest consignment of cocaine in the history of this country, worth $350 million.
Thankfully, it was confiscated.
Thankfully, it was confiscated. And it could
imagine if this had gone into the system.
To the Director General of NIB, Charles Kipo. He was really instrumental in arresting the dealers and attempt to arrest the MP for Asin South, who made an allegation about the landing of airmed aircrafts with illicit drugs and money yet to be proven. And then other issues. These gargantuan issues call for gargantuan determination to unravel the truth. And doing so, we should do nothing to erode the fundamental underpinnings of our democracy. Democracy is touted as one of accomplishments in Africa. But the reality is that our democracy is still on the stilt. So nothing should be done to destroy its skittish foundation. And we also ought to be very careful. In fact, there's a need more than ever before to ingest the highest dose of circumspection, sensitivity, and responsibility in all our public discourses. Because the whole world is watching. Ghana is now the spotlight of international attention because of these allegations of cocaine and all that. And the endless swapping of accusations by the ruling party and the opposition. These are all issues we can call tensions to rise. And when tensions, assume some high voltage level, then they can crystallize into something else. So we should be careful.
All right. Later, when we get into that story in the publisher, Bawumia slams Mahama over NIB rates, I'll share some thoughts because, like I was mentioning yesterday, while you want to protect every citizen, no matter how, from the least to the greatest, from the baby born today, that baby has rights. Even inside the womb, as you know, at a certain, after you cross a certain point, that baby has rights to the greatest person we also can't say that our privileges extend beyond, everyone else's. But we'll get there, and then we'll pick apart the issues.
Yeah.
Kwame Nkrumah, to you.
I would just quickly combine two issues to continue from where Senior left off. This cocaine issue is a very serious, very serious. I mean, drugs are a very destructive thing in any society. We shouldn't just look at the value and think, well, it's illegal money that somebody is making, but the lives that are affected by it. And Ghana, we already have a drug problem that we refuse to acknowledge. We have the tramadol issue, we have the red
opioids and
the opioids.
Damage.
It's a very serious. A lot of these young men at the traffic lights cleaning the windscreens and all that. A lot of them, you can see that they are not themselves. But I think there's still hope to do with this issue. I remember during His Excellency, former President Kufuor's time, we had the MV Benjamins, and I mean, there are a lot of issues with cocaine, but he was able to successfully deal with it. And I don't know why it has resurfaced at this point. I am not sure. It could be that there are times where the dealers feel with the change in government, they can quickly, it could be anything. But it's a fact that we do have a cocaine problem on our hands. Whether it is at the airport, I have no proof of that. But at least the Takrady one has been proven. It was an articulated truck. The driver has probably been arrested, and we have to get to the bottom of it. And I'll also quickly touch on the burning of Honorable Ayariga's house at Boku. I really sympathize with the indigents of Boku, and if it has reached their MP, that means nobody is safe. And I think the state and the citizenry should come together to do something about these issues in that part of the country, which has lingered for a very long time.
Just on that bit, because we'll get into Team for Joy and the rest, but something else that's on my mind is, Ghana has, for let's say 20 years, from the Kufuor era, and then bit by bit, at a point, we were seen to be some, not a narco state, but some conduit, and that we were blacklisted at a point. And then it was lifted. And I mean, through these last 2 decades, we've suffered some issues here and there, drug busts. You remember the famous Kokunte?
Yes.
But my curiosity is it that over the last 2 years, for example, if you look at it, within the first 3 months or so of this year, there are these busts. Is it that something has changed, which is why we are getting the busts? I'm talking security. Or is it that all of a sudden more is happening? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because if you follow the BBC Eye documentary that was made on the opioids, it was said that Ghana had been used as a transit point. And then from here, I mean, it comes through the port, and then they transited to Nigeria and other places, which meant that we were causing problems, not just for ourselves, but for our neighbors because of our sloppiness. So is it that the security apparatus is stronger now and they are looking at certain things? Or is it that it was not happening before and now all of a sudden it's happening? What do you think?
Maybe the law can look at but before he does, I think credit should go to our security agencies, particularly the Director General of Bureau of National Intelligence. And what I know about this story is that the drugs came from the high seas. They were loaded at midnight. How they evaded arrest on the high seas and they got on land is an issue of great mystery, so which ought to be investigated. Thankfully, they had a tip-off. The driver was arrested, admitted that he had done 2 trips. So he was arrested on the 3rd one, and he charged 50,000 cedis for each trip. So already he had bagged 100,000 cedis. So he was on the 3rd trip to make 150,000 cedis within days. And it was the tip of which did the trick. And we also heard that there were moves, some certain moves to replicate the Kokote story, but it never happened. But This is one has to be very stingy with spilling the beans.
Spilling the beans.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting in that regard? Because we have, you remember when we were talking about the opioids bit, we have a rehab problem. How many rehab centers do you know in Ghana? So if you go off a certain
rehab,
it's so expensive.
the cost. I remember there's this musician, for the sake of privacy, I don't want to mention his name, but I think Hammer of the Last Two and others, because back then, and they went to his aid because he needed rehab and all of them. I think he even released a song, which I've listened to, and then he slipped, back. I mean, it's difficult. And that is why recently when we had the conversation, I think one of the medical people was telling us that don't get there. Because when you get there, the impact on your brain and even how long it will take to come back and the difficulty.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even genetic because some people are more able to overcome it than others. Others are naturally more, disposed to suffer the worst consequences.
Yeah.
That is one. Then you look at this bit. How do we police our territorial waters? Our Navy. You go to other countries and, because they know they are hotspots all over, from the coast of Italy, Spain, all of these, because usually people traveling through Libya would use some of those places and try to connect to Europe. How are we policing our territorial waters? You have Chinese and others always fishing with trawlers in our waters. They are taking what is ours,
impunity,
crossing back and selling them. And what are we doing about it? You remember the piracy incident in recent times, where some of them. That's some of what happens. So it's really difficult dealing with it.
Yeah.
But I think at the ports more can be done.
Sure.
At the ports more can be done.
And more should be done.
More ought to be done.
Yeah.
Let's get into the papers. Let's start with your stories.
Ghanaian publisher Bawumia slams Mahama over NIB race. The former vice president and leader of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia, has strongly condemned recent actions by the state security agencies, accusing the Mahama-led administration of using them as tools to harass political opponents. Reasons petitioners want the CJ removed. This is one story of huge interest. Court opposed an order on Presbytery, 25,000 city costs awarded against the petitioner. So if I may use my latitude to go to the story for the removal of the Chief Justice, and the story says, Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Tokuno is facing mounting pressure from 3 separate petitioners calling for her suspension and removal from office. The calls for her removal, directed at President Mahama, come amid a series of allegations ranging from constitutional breaches and abuse of office to financial misconduct. This is what the story says. And we also have this story, Ghana must respond strategically to U.S. tariffs. This is an issue which is also trending. And Donald Trump, His Excellency, is accused of appending the global trade system. And his critics...
I mean, we've heard that there's been a bit of a pause on that for about 3 months or so.
Yeah.
The trade minister has also spoken to that effect. But I think, look, we must just learn from this. Let's assume they still impose it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Don't assume, maybe that, no. Let's worst case scenario. Sometimes it's good to work with a worst case scenario and move up from there. Because if you raise your hopes and they are dashed, you will be left at the mercy of, and it's a wake-up call for all of us.
Yeah, and to quote this friend lawyer, Michel Montaigne, says, I learn little from good examples, but more from bad examples, which serve as daily lessons. So these are lessons fountain of lessons we ought to drink as a nation and as a continent. Yeah.
Any other stories you'd like to get into, or would you like to react to that before he moves?
Yes, especially the tariff issue.
Right.
I agree with you perfectly that we have to imagine a worst case scenario. Yesterday, I listened to almost the whole of a program about ECG yesterday evening.
And that's a fantastic program.
The National Dialogue.
Yes.
And I learned...
Anchored by Elton John Broadway.
I learned so much.
One
One of the points I was made was how ECG purchases its inputs in dollars.
Yeah.
And yet charges in cedis. So as the exchange rate is going, that means the statement used by one of the panelists was that you wake up a millionaire and the next day it's all gone.
Yeah.
We have to wean ourselves off this dependency on foreign currency and the West, and we can't be at the mercy of these tariffs. Even if the tariffs are reduced to zero, as people are pushing for, or even negative, as long as our apron strings are tied to this type of economic system, this dependency on the West, we are not going to get anywhere. So we have to imagine a worst case scenario. Let's even proceed as if we've also got 150% tariffs like China has. Let's look within. Let's see how we can cut our umbilical cord from this system. It will not get us anywhere. I mean, it's a story that I'm really following closely. And I think the ambassador, Ghana's U.S. ambassador to Ghana, she's done quite a lot to reassure us. I'm happy.
Palmer.
I'm happy about it. But we have to realize that every state looks at its own interest. So no matter how well America treats us, they wouldn't want a position where we will not be dependent on them. We have to wake up and smell the coffee and then kick against the same neo-colonialism that our founder Kwame Nkrumah fought against. You see, all his writings are turning out to be a reality. I mean,
and you know what's interesting? One of the areas where he wanted to get us self-sufficiency in is where, after what? Just about 6 decades, we're still crumbling. Power.
Exactly.
That's why he built Akosombo.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
That's why he put up Akosombo.
Yes.
At the time, Ghana's population was what, 6 million?
Yes.
People said he had gone crazy.
Yes.
But he foresaw.
Exactly.
He realized that the population wouldn't stay at 6 million thereabouts. It would grow.
And
if it grew,
at that time,
you would have to meet the energy needs.
Yeah.
That's why he foresaw and went for Akosombo.
It was a money spinning avenue, because revenue spinning avenue for Ghana, because we're exporting to neighboring countries.
Burkina Faso and all of that.
I forgot that we used to export power. I mean,
Even in the 90s, we were exporting power.
Yeah.
And I think even until recently, we've still been doing a few things until we had a power situation, and then you remember the directive to cut off. But what that also means is you close revenue doors that you may not be able to reopen. Because if you close the door to me, of course, Burkina Faso, I'll have to power my economy. I'll go to another country. If they are able to supply me, by the time you come back, you may not have a contract. You get it. It's just a convoluted problem. In fact, yesterday, the former ECG MD said, you cannot have a multi-billion-dollar industry or multi-billion CD industry in Ghana and not invest in it. And he was saying that in the first term of Akufo-Addo, there was zero investment in ECG. But then he adds, nobody stops to calculate what portion of ECG's debt is due to forex losses. I think that was not right, though, because indeed we've spoken about it. But it's a problem. It's a conundrum for the PURC because you also can't say that once you are incurring these forex losses. Let's say you buy in dollars and yet the CD keeps eroding and you are paid in CDs. What do we do about it? I know with the PURC's permutations, there's a window, a bit of an add-on for some of these forex losses. It's not enough. But where do we go from there? Because if we want to follow this as well, it would mean that we'll be increasing tariffs today you are paying 50 CDs a month. Next month you're paying about 65 CDs. You see? And we all know where the currency is. You can't just immediately bring it down to where we would want it to be. It's interesting. And I'll just end here. I was looking yesterday at some bills I had paid for school in somewhere in the UK, right? I did a distance study and I looked at how much it was then to pay for, how much was it? I think 1,000 and something pounds. I had spent about 9,100 cedis. And this is how many years ago? This is maybe 2016, 2017, if I get it right.
Yeah.
How much is that in cedis today? That's about 20,000 cedis. So you see the difference.
More than 100%.
It's crazy. Yeah. I was just going through some document and I saw it. And you know, sometimes it hits you like, hey, I paid this for that amount. And today, if I want to get that same amount, how much is it going to cost me?
Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy. Well, let's get into other stories. So I feel money. You wanted to?
I thought you had finished.
Government will roll out new SIM card registration from July 1. The government will roll out SIM card registration and central equipment identification register from 1st July 2025. This has become necessary to remove the shortfalls in the previous SIM card registration undertaken under the administration of the MPP. The shortfalls include non-matching of the registrant's biometric data with SIM cards and no verification at the back end. But this, many people are yet to come to terms with the rationale for this SIM card registration. So this underlines the need for more education for people to be on the same page with Sam George's ministry, because we recall the hellish time we endured in registering our SIM cards, and if Ghanaians are going to be subjected to the same hellish experiences, then there's a need for thorough education so that people will understand why they need to re-register their SIM cards and why it pay off to spend some time and money to do that. Yeah.
The sector minister has said, I think I read yesterday, he was saying something about Ghanaians enjoying special data bundles on some holidays and all of that. But beyond all of that, I think we should get to the point where whether it's the national health insurance or SIM cards, we should just have a system that works so that we don't have this rollover, a new administration comes and, there were these little bits. I understand what he's saying, but how do we, are you going to go through this process again? What is this going to mean? I remember back then, some people were, Charlie, I'm busy. You now have to rush to your supplier, your telco, and go and sit there, queue for hours sometimes. You're losing business hours and all of that. I don't know what shape or form it will take, but I think as a nation we have to get to the point where
he claimed that it
will
be tech-driven, devoid of hassles or long queues at the offices of the mobile network operators. And this is a word of difference between
let's hope so.
This one and the next one. So
let's hope so.
There's a need for us to be educated and convinced that it's worth embarking on this journey once again.
Because honestly, if it's a simple process, fine, but I don't want to do this.
It was a very stressful thing.
It can be stressful. Yeah. I remember when I was doing mine the last time when Ursula, there were some deadlines that were, Charlie, it wasn't easy, because sometimes work hours and sneaking out and you go, well, not sneak, but go out there hoping that within a certain window you can finish. You are not done. You have to come back. You have to go the next
time. It's money.
It can be stressful. But let's hope for the best.
Unless they are going to give a very long period. I don't know how many weeks or months they are going to do it for, but
all we know at least is that it will start in July.
On July 1st. Because I think if they give a very long period, it may help.
But can the telcos also facilitate it in a way? You see, the problem too is if there are other mechanisms where you can maybe not necessarily physically come there.
Yeah.
It may be helpful, but there's fraud and all of that. So sometimes, our systems are not that far advanced. And sometimes the fear is that some people may do certain things and you will have the wrong information. Then, for all you know, another administration will come and say, we have to do this over again.
There's a terminal point, certainly.
Are you wrapping on that paper?
TUC reiterate opposition to privatization of UCG. This is a story which is being rehashed. TUC, ideologically speaking, they are opposed to anything privatization because it comes with job losses and all that.
I think they've mentioned, I suspect if it was, I think it was the TUC mentioning that sometimes there's talk about, politicians talk about, they use different words to still talk about privatization. They found different ways of saying,
they consider privatization and private sector participation as one and the same.
Yeah. But is it one and the same though? Private sector participation versus privatization, because there are different
different models of different models. Yeah.
But I think it's also good sometimes when you have some private sector investment to kickstart. Yes. But what I always said, and at least I think when those groups met and they came out with 8 suggestions, which were trimmed down to 3, the fact that we can't lose a national asset like ECG. Sure. If you have less of a stake in it, the other party which is coming will not be coming for your good. They'll be coming for money.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's ensure that we have the larger stake always, and we have control over what is.
Absolutely. They need to square. They need to bring in more revenue to the protection of our national interests. Yeah.
Okay. Any reactions? Are you done there so that I can go?
Yeah. I think.
I think one reaction is if you listen to the likely causes TUC gave for the issues at ECG, they spoke about. I think I listened to it on radio. I heard sometimes we would have some corrupt practices regarding the meters, and you'd have indiscipline, people not turning up for work or not doing the work they're supposed to do. And I think if we take a closer look at sorting out those things, we may be able to avoid this privatization. And my mind went to how sometimes the biggest entities that owe ECG bills are actually the state.
Exactly.
Actually, the state entities. You understand me? And you're going to have.
Last year, there were robust attempts. Last year, there were robust attempts to.
And you're going to have this privatization
to recover what institutions owe them. Yeah. And they made some gains. They rake in billions of cedis, but they went to sleep. And they are back to square one. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, interesting stuff. We'll get into other papers now. But before we get there, let me just also take a quick mention that there is also, some interesting stories in the Ghanaian Times I'll be getting to in a bit. Kwame Nkrumah, let's get into the news center now.
So I have NDC doubles down on pledge to quickly end double track. And we also have TUC vows to resist ECG privatization. MTN unveils year-long strategy to transform MCs. Baumia decries security intimidation, harassment. And BOG CEOs of banks brainstorm over 100 basis points hike in policy rate. And I think starting with NDC doubling down on pledge to quickly end double track. I think it's good that the Honorable Minister of Education is taking another look at the double track system, because sometimes there's a tendency to just rubbish the policies of previous administrations without checking whether the alternative is actually better, whether ending the double track system is better. Because we are already in the free education system. If there wasn't free SHS, then the government could decide whichever policy they want to adopt. But they have come to meet the free SHS policy. And until the free SHS policy is probably changed or done away with, if it is double track, that will help to manage the numbers. Then they have to stick to the double track. And I'm glad that they have doubled down. And another story is TUC vows to resist ECG privatization, which we're just discussing. I think the TUC has done a wonderful job of breaking down what they believe are the problems at ECG. And I think we should take a closer look at that. And Baumia decries security, intimidation, harassment. And that's also a very interesting story because you can realize that no matter the regime in power, we do have excesses when it comes to the use of the security agencies to harass. I cannot say here whether what is happening now is harassment or intimidation. But one thing I can say is that a lot of the time, whether it's NPP or NDC, if it is NPP's time and they are asking, why are you doing this? The response is, but they also did this without looking at the rights of the individual in question. I can understand why maybe they wanted to arrest the Honorable Reverend Minister at his house, because arresting an MP is not easy. You cannot serve them with a court document to arrest them. If I forgot the exact words, if they're on their way to Parliament or coming home, it's a very tricky situation. But I also heard that he had been.
I mean, if they are in the course of performing any parliamentary duties,
exactly.
Whether heading to that place or in Parliament or all that.
Yes. So
there are certain dynamics.
Probably they felt that he being at home was the right time to arrest him. And I heard some quotations of the Public Order Act that a warrant wasn't needed because if a police above the rank of constable sees somebody committing a crime, they can arrest them. But the thing is, what crime was he committing sitting at his house? So it's a very delicate balance there. We have to allow the security services to do their job. But at the same time, if there is a way that their job can be done without all the sensationalism, we should look at it. And we also have, if you go to the second page, we have IGP leads delegation to evaluate Boku security situation. Right. That security situation, we do need a long-term solution to this issue. I suppose that part of Ghana has had its problems. It's had its. I stay there for a while. I suppose maybe with the exception of some pockets which have peace, the rest have had all kinds of situations that I think the state should look at getting a long-term solution to it. And then we have Cocoa Board urges public to disregard any announcement on cocoa producer price. And then we also have BOG injects $264 million into forex market to stabilize city. You know, when I see these headlines, it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. As much as I did economics in secondary school, I'm not an economist, so I cannot criticize their policies. But for how long are these policies going to work? We've had similar policies for decades, and our currency just keeps on dropping. The dollar just keeps on going up. We are held to the mercy of the world economic system, and we need to put our foot down. And as I said before, look to our founder, Nkrumah, and his advice, and then implement what he advised. And I'm sure that we will make headway. And then we also
on that point before the others coming, capital flight. Mm-hmm. We're always, and that our currency, because we don't do certain things, our currency is always vacillating, fluctuating, flip-flopping. It's always at the mercy of, maybe now worse than we've seen ever in the Fourth Republic. But the point to be made that because we are also importing so much that we don't produce, we are at the mercy of, because if you don't produce a thing, and the person is telling you, I have produced it, I've added value to it, and I'm selling it at this, what can you do? You have to buy it. I was looking at something recently. You see dental floss.
Yes.
Because we import toothpicks. Don't forget. We still do import toothpicks.
We do, yes.
And I have some dental floss, and I was just wondering, do we produce some in Ghana? How many companies are producing something as basic as dental floss?
Yeah. Or much.
Right. Because a lot of what I see is imported. So if you're importing all of these things, there's no way you will not have some of these problems. So like you're saying, the central bank can pump in whatever. There are certain peak seasons within every year, your currency will definitely suffer. And every year we get to that point.
Exactly. And we also have to adopt our own form of protectionism. Because if the Chinese state is subsidizing its industries and we produce our dental floss, that means the imported dental floss may be cheaper than what we produce. So we also have to look at the Trump model. I mean, as much as it's hurting us, we also have to put tariffs on other states. But of course, our hands are tied. We get loans and grants from all these countries, and we think they are doing us a favor. We think they love us so much. But, well, I mean, we can all see that it's to keep our hands tied. So we need to do something about.
And you can't run away from the other bit, right? But let me bring in Professor Isaac Boadi. He's Dean of Accounting and Finance at the University of Professional Studies. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, bro.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
You also can't run away from the bit about some private entities coming from abroad. And you see, we allow them to work and they repatriate practically all the revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That thing is hurting us because if they are able to keep some, then you cut down on importation. And it must be a holistic approach. But if you do only one, it will not work. But Prof, I don't know what your thoughts are on this matter before we get into the other stories there.
Good morning again. Good morning to my good friends and your viewers as well. We've been saying all this, that Ghana, we are blessed as a country. But God has been so good, giving us everything that we need. Our country is not poor. There's just management of our resources that is a problem. Because as a country, yes, you cannot run away from other engagement with other countries. Obviously, you bring some product into your country, but find out the ones that you can get here and the ones that you need to bring essential commodity that you cannot. The toothpick we talked about. Can't we do these things here? All the real resources that we have, it's a matter of harnessing those resources. Add value to those ones.
Comparative advantage.
We have oil, we have gold, we have
lithium,
everything we have.
Is it the resource curse? But you know, I mean, if you study the literature, there is a trend. The countries with the most resources.
Nigeria is a typical example.
Congo.
DRC.
DRC can be the bread basket, food basket.
And we hear Congo can even feed us with power throughout Africa.
In Ghana, we could supply, if the African continental free trade area and things work, we could supply we could power the whole of Africa with the systems we have, though we are not using it well, which is why we are where we are. So
I don't know the solution to our problem. Honestly, if you ask me, we have the technical, the brains, even the ones we have talked about are the ones we have found. The ones hidden under the ground. We don't even know them.
But to know the solution, you must first know the problem. Do you know the problem?
I think the problems are well known, but the will to implement what you know has been so conspicuous.
So what do you think, Prof?
It's difficult to know our problems. But the issue is that if you don't know the problem, you can't solve. And that's what you said. Do we know the problem?
Yes. I have an idea what our foremost problem is in Africa. It's not leadership. It's not because look at the leaders we've had, NPP, NDC. Just assess them. You remember? I mean, the former president said we have the men, the former team, we have the men and all of that. Actually, they did. They did have the men and women on paper. Look at it. Some of them Ivy League trained, some of them from Oxbridge, Oxford and Cambridge. And I mean, these are people who have trained in entities, educational entities with high reputation. And they've traveled. They are well traveled. Why are they not able to apply what they've seen there here? It's not about omunim. Even for those that we often tease are not well educated and they don't speak well, they have some foundation in the private sector and all of that. So why is it not working?
There was an article. There was an article in the Daily Graphic.
You don't have the solution.
There was an article in the Daily Graphic some years back which was bitingly critical of the educated elite. That article
I agree.
blamed all our problems on the educated elite. For instance, the Sushan boy, he or she has no access to state funds, let alone to steal. But all the acts of corruption are perpetrated by people.
You are going exactly where I was going. There is no thief bigger, better than the educated thief.
Yeah.
Because the common thief doesn't, but the one who is educated knows how to calculate. Knows how to. It reminds me
manipulates
of one of the short stories in Jeffrey Archer's, is it a twist in the tail or something of the sort? Where there was this Nigerian minister who came. It was a story. But who came and he was acting down on corruption. Everyone was afraid. At the end, he himself went to a Swiss bank. He asked them, look, I want to know the names of all Nigerians who have, and by the way, I'm saying this is a story, who have accounts here. A lot of them Swiss banks. He did everything, even put a gun to someone's head. They did not give him the information. Then he said, good, now I know. And then he brought money to save that. The one who was our foremost problem, if you take away the educated elite, is greed. If we didn't have greedy leaders all the way from the days of independence, which is what Nkrumah was warning of, because if you look at it carefully, colonialism did a lot of damage to us. But since we took over, our leaders, I dare say, have done more damage to us. I'm not talking just Ghana. Have done more damage to us in where we are now, compared to even, because on the foreigner, he doesn't care about you, but your own kith and kin. And what we are doing, it is greed. That's why we are here.
But beyond the technical we have, beyond the technical we have, beyond the greediness. I mean, you said it right. The other issue that we have is also our culture. Look, let me give you a typical example. This Galamsey issue, you get an MP in an area or a DC in an area to say, I want to stand my authority on this. I will not allow anybody to do it. The next day, your father comes to you, tells you, please, this thing you are doing, the people in the area have come to me. They are telling me that I should come and tell you to stop. You say, Father, I will not do this. I won't stop. He comes a second time. The third time, he calls in the morning. Kojo, miwa, mama yase. So where's Adua? What happens to you? If someone who is older makes a mistake, you are the younger one, pretend it is. We don't even have a culture of you can be here, someone can be there. But if you made a mistake, you here, admit it. And that's why we are where we are. Our politicians, when they err, can't even come out and say, I said this.
It takes some inner strength to,
So he's right.
No, that's my problem. You stop.
To add to this greed issue, I think about 20 years ago, I read this book called The Mango and the Baobab, where there was this European, I've forgotten which country. He spent a long time in Ghana and Thailand and I think Malaysia. And I think he also knew about Singapore. And he was trying to figure out why all those countries started at the same time as Ghana, but they were ahead of Ghana. And he said in Ghana, the ruling elite, the political elite, they are like the baobab tree. Wherever they go, they sap all the resources and they just enrich themselves.
And the baobab keeps getting bigger.
But when you have Thailand, Singapore, they are like the mango tree. When they get into power, as much as they get enriched, the fruits affect everybody. It drops on everybody. So regarding this greed thing, there's a fundamental lack of empathy. We are unable to sympathize with our fellow man and get to know that he also goes through the same difficulties.
That's a leadership problem.
Yes, we need to really, look at that. And as he said, the culture also counts. If your father is going to tell you, do this for him, but he should realize that by you cutting corners or doing this corruption or overlooking this, it has a ripple effect. There's somebody down the line that you do not know who may be in difficulty or who may even be pushed. The shoe shine boy may even be pushed to steal a loaf of bread just because you did somebody a favor somewhere high up. So we should know that every little decision we make as the educated elite, it trickles down to
and this issue of also worshipping filthy opulence.
Oh yeah, they'll have the front row seats, and I always feel bad saying it. Back in the day, Prof, you would see that if someone had money, you would want to find out how they made their money before they accord you any respect. Today, oh, he has money, let's worship him.
Exactly, yeah.
Front row seats in church.
It's true. It's true.
If you don't have, you say that.
How did he get the money? No one cares.
It's true. It's true. It's a good point. I remember my former hall teacher, author, I think it was Professor Banoy Yakubu. He spoke of when he bought his first car and he took it to his hometown, somewhere in the Upper West region. And before they welcomed him, they asked him, we want to know exactly how you got this car before we praise you. And it's time. This is as far back as probably the late 90s that he told us this story. We the Komauthor, we had an event and he told us. And it stuck with me till today. They wanted to know exactly how he made this money. But now, we don't ask questions. When you ask questions, people think it's envy. But at the same time, too, we shouldn't be throwing out unsubstantiated allegations out there.
Mr. Money, you were making a point. Yeah, but just to reiterate the point that there's a need for us to question. Integrity, you can't put a price tag on integrity. You cannot, it's value integrity. So people of integrity, they're the people who should receive the highest accord in our society. Because all the fingers I don't recall, we don't have the same potentiality to make it big in life. But if you are regarded as a man or woman of integrity, society must accord you all the respect, and not necessarily judging you by your wealth, your palatial homes, cars, and all that. But this is the time for us to reset. Even though the word reset has some political connotations, this is the time to reset the whole society and ensure that we honor people who really deserve honor.
And Vitus sends in a message. He says, the educated elite think they are smarter than everyone.
Yeah.
And we have to assess ourselves, all of us.
Yeah.
Because if the educated and religious people, and how many Christians have we had? I am Christian, I am Catholic. How many have we had leading this country? If we are here, we must also accept some of the blame that we have failed on that level. And if we claim, oh, you have a PhD, you have a master's and all of that, and our country is still where it is, whether in academia, whether in politics, whether in media, wherever it is.
And Ben, I think we should also
we have to look at ourselves.
Not to turn the guns on the media. Because by virtue of the role we play in society, holding people in positions of power and authority to account, holding their lens to the fire of accountability. But this is what some of us fail to do. And our failure is so monumental because we allow ourselves to be compromised, depending on who is paying. So the time has come for us to be, to show that fidelity to the principles which underpin our professional journalism.
We'll get into the custodian shortly, but Prof, at the inception of the Fourth Republic, what he's saying about common people and all of that, there was hue and cry about the fact that, in formulating our constitution, which has stood the test of time, you had, apart from, I've forgotten his name, that justice, and a plethora of other legal brains and other prominent people who were there, you also had hairdressers, and the common people in there. I feel their presence there because we tend to think, people of a certain category. But all of that input has made our constitution, though it is not without issue, what it is today. But we lampooned it. Some people, hairdressers.
No one person is a repository of wisdom. And ideas can flow sometimes from sources you least expect. Sushan boy, market women, all that. Look at how masterful our market women are in managing their businesses. Yeah. Some have paid, accounting background. Some have they've chartered as accountants and all that. But entrust them with vital responsibilities, they be found wanting. But the woman who has not been to class 1 will know how to manage her business to such an extent that business will grow, employ more people, and economy will boom.
I know some of these Makola women. Some of these Makola women. If you see where they live, and you disrespect them there, you'll be shocked.
But you've forgotten that if you go to some of the places in Accra, those houses are owned by those Makola women. Yeah. And we have our elites, dedicated ones, renting from them.
I'm talking airport hills and stuff.
Yeah. So sometimes, even when they are to read our budget, I always advise that the first place to go for a minister is to go to Makola women first. Have a workshop with these Makola women.
Dr. Forsen,
they will teach you.
Went around. Did you see that?
The time was short.
It was short.
2 days after the
optics. No, optics.
Give about a week. Yeah. They will teach you real economics.
Practical.
On the ground.
Yes. Practical economics,
So we need to balance the act. Yes, it's good to pick a lot from the theory and all that. I'm not saying the bad is good, but then have the practical one as well. And we don't need to neglect all these people.
The custodian newspaper.
Yes, the custodian newspaper. This headline story here: stop using security agents to harass opponents. And that's Baumia Minority Tell Mahama, their petition speaker. It's a worrying situation. Do we conclude that it's a systemic oppression or the law enforcement doing their job? This comes out as a result of the aeroplane, the aircraft issue, the cocaine that was were picked up from the warehouse, and all the way we've been told that the minority. Is it a majority? The mighty
minority.
Issued a press conference, and we heard that some marksmen gone into his house to pick him up. So many issues have come up. In fact, who is to be blamed? Is it the police? Is it the opposition? Or is it the government? This whole thing.
So maybe we can broaden the police into the security apparatus of the state.
Of the state, as part of those ones. But it's the difficult situation. And, there are results when we do this. One, democracy is at risk when we do this. Rule of law at risk. Again, investors' confidence. When we see these headlines, it's a worrying situation. And I don't know when we can do this. If you look at Kenya model, Kenya, for example, they enforced or they supported the police, and they were able to reduce this harassment to about 40%. People are picked the rally grounds. Selected people are persecuted based on comments that the person makes. And we have police sometimes going to houses of the opposition. Has it happened before? Is it the first time? That's why I asked the question, which we cannot get an answer. Is it a systematic thing, or just that police people are doing their normal jobs? Which, for me, we should find a solution to this. I'm not saying that it has never happened before. Rally grounds, we pick people, demonstrations, we pick people after demonstration, we pick them. And we don't need to use, democracy bliss when the state security or agents are used as a weapon to oppress the opposition. And that we dropped in our rankings, I think 2024 or so, about three points or so because of this. We should not be seeing these headlines that security agents harassing the opponent. Investors are watching. And for me, that's where I am looking at the numbers. If we do this, Some of them want to travel beyond your borders. Then you realize the importance of coming to the online to check what is happening in your country. And that's what all the world people are doing. So we need to look at this. Now they have petition backbone. And the other case that happened, the first one, they petitioned the international community. I don't know.
Diplomatic call in Ghana.
Yeah. So when domestically you are not getting results, where do you go? You go outside. Is that the solution? They have petitioned Babe. If they don't succeed, where will they go next? International community. And what is the image? So I think we should do things right. If the minister makes a mistake, it's not above the law. Let's find a nice way and invite him. And in that case, was he invited? That's another question. And then he failed to attend. Or it just...
the claim was that he had been invited. He said he had not been invited. There were rebuttals and all of that.
Now, the issue is that where is the common enemy? Is it the NDC? Or is it MPP? Where are the goods, the asset, the cocaine? Where?
let me,
the guy we can't find. What are we doing?
Let me situate the conversation further and just draw up a list. Aaron Latif Idrisu, how many years ago? His case is still in court.
The one that
assaulted by the police. Butt of a gun on his head, cracking his skull. Right? Fracturing his skull. You have a man who many years back was on demonstration with Gabi Otridako and co. You remember the one whose eye was impacted under the NDC before 2016. You have Gabi Otridako himself who was slapped at a point. You have Sam George, Ayawaso West Wogo, also a member of parliament, assaulted. Democracy Hub. Thrown in. I had to go and visit some of them in police custody. What basically have they done? People who hadn't even been active in what they were picked up. Someone who wasn't even there was picked up.
Someone who had gone to see a patient.
Law students, you remember the water cannon incident and all of that. Francis Xavier Sosu picked up. Church. Chachuchikata. You see, I'm taking from different eras and what we have seen. So it's an issue. Due process must be followed, and every individual's rights must be upheld to the highest level. You may say that, President primus inter pares, but the law still applies. But with every right comes responsibility.
The two should go in tandem.
So I wholly agree. No one should be persecuted. Maybe prosecuted if the person has done something wrong. But persecution goes beyond prosecution. Right? So everybody must be fair. But I also ask, that question you were raising, the how of doing it is important, but you don't have privilege that extends beyond everyone else's. Your rights end where someone else's begins. So at this point, the cocaine, where is it? Like you were asking, right? I believe also that if the invitation purportedly was thrown and he says no invitation actually came, let's assume no invitation was there. We've got to this point in the country. What is Reverend Intim Fojo waiting for? Simple question. I mean, let's unravel this matter.
They gave a tip for authority to act upon. This is what Anyagba is saying, that they gave a tip of what
in his first presser. It was sort of alleging. The second time we heard, it was more like, this is it. This came into the country. It was emphatic. You see, that's why I feel it becomes problematic. Because if I say that, Prof, Sebi, you're a thief. You would take me on, wouldn't you? In fact, if I came here and said that, you're Prof is a... Next thing I know, you'll probably be suing me and the entire entity for propagating. I would have to prove in court whether I've not, defamed you and all of that. You do get it. The dynamics are, I don't know whether we appreciate where we are.
Anytime we play the ball to the side of the politicians, this is the result we get. I ask a simple question. Let's take NDC, MPP out of this equation. And we are talking about fake currencies, unaccounted dollars, gold linked to illegal mining. These are three.
Some which the claims are that they are fake, but where are the real ones?
Good. So, when we have this story, they have a nice pattern that they follow. We have a spectacular seizures of the items. We give fleeting headlines. No accountability. We go to sleep. We'll talk and talk and talk and talk. Another issue will come. We'll talk and talk. For me, I wrote an article that there should be a public audit on all the seized assets over the years. I listed all the cases over the year, the MVP, MJ, Benjamin, all those. Go back and track where the assets.
I was making similar comments recently that, and sometimes they will show we've burnt all of. Is that all of it?
Where? Yeah.
I'm just saying, is that all of it? Sometimes we've got to destroy. Is that the
when we do that, we don't help the system. Okay, someone claims that I have an intelligence, I have an idea, this thing probably had happened. Then we have the NDC coming up, the government, say, oh no, it wasn't true. The aircraft came, the pilot was sleeping. He wanted to find a place and rest. Was the GA. So many issues have come up. Take those issues out. Let's go into the substance. Where are those assets that were seized? Where?
But you're not talking you're talking of the effect, not the airplane, because I think you are confusing two.
Oh no, it led into. Wasn't that
not related.
The 350
not
million
related at all
is different from the airplane. Airplanes, what the Ghana Airport Company Limited is saying, NACOC, National Security, they actually checked those flights and there was nothing in there. So I think you are fusing the 350 million.
Let's come back again. Are we talking about the rate, Superman rate? No, it's gone. We're still talking about it.
Okay.
Now we are moving to the aircraft. What the aircraft, the airline came to do in Ghana, we don't know. But then, do we allow the institution to comment? The government has a right to comment, for me. But I've never heard anything from Ghana. Or have they from the Ghana Supervision?
Yeah, they've come out.
We've heard from the Ghana Airport Company Limited. I think there's something, I don't know whether this,
it was late.
The GCAA.
But
I think I've seen something. I may not have read it. I think I may have seen something. And I think this is where also, the other day I was saying that...
But when they were late to issue the statement, I think time is of essence anyway.
They shouldn't, no, they should be, when it happens like this, I'm sure that an institution of with such resources, PRO and all those things, you should let us know before we allow the government probably will be the last resort to come and talk about this. Yeah.
But I think it also points to what more can be done in ensuring transparency on some of these matters so that it doesn't come to, because like I keep mentioning, and it's because I spoke to him here, the NACOC Deputy Director, Alex Chumberima, who is a lawyer himself. When he came here, he showed me a video dated the 16th of March. Okay. Intim Fojo had his presser, I think, on the 1st of April. Some people have also raised questions about, between when it landed on the 12th? And the 16th when this video was taken, what happened in between? You get it? Was the search conducted when it came? What happened in between?
Legitimate.
Until which is legitimate. Until maybe this video was taken. So I think we need to crack the whip. We need to seek answers, but we also must stop doing politics. Everything, which sometimes I sense. Because if you are not careful, I keep saying, the boy who cried wolf, crying wolf, wolf every day as a joke. But the day something really happened and he was crying wolf, no one listened to him because they knew him to be here.
We'll be talking.
It's a national disease. It's true. Refracting every issue with partisan lenses.
It's true. It's true because even the Takrade, when I heard the MP for, I think second D, Honorable Blade Nyameke, saying someone had accused him of having something to do with it. And it's true, we shouldn't politicize because it could be that, he has. It could be that they could even be non-political actors. But we're always quick to tag any high-level crime with this party or that party. And then we have the real culprits laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
we
Which
really
also reminds me of, I think there was another allegation as well that of the $350 million bust, I think in Team Fojo, right? He said that $150 million of it belonged to an NDC parliamentary
candidate.
The one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this is the
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something else I feel.
This issue. Yeah,
I mean, if you know that for a fact, tell the nation so that we can know this person and deal with the person.
And
but
then
if you
he has
don't,
gone to
then you've
court.
made such an allegation, and if it were me,
he's going to court. He's going to court too.
thankfully, no names were. But do you get how serious these can be? You can't make claims and it's.
And said for us, it's like he had never cited any thing, let alone to.
We'll become lawyers.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there any other
Reality,
story? We have just about 1 minute.
Yeah.
You can do that, and then I'll wrap with my.
Reality has exposed NDC on the economy. I'm sure Gideon will work on the issue about the COVID when NDC used that MPP claimed that economic issues, they had some external shock. And now a minister has also confirmed from the NDC that,
But did anyone say there were no external shocks?
well, I mean, that's what
It was the extent that everybody spoke about, because the whole world experienced the external
But we have some
shocks. But the question was, to what extent? Right here in Africa, you have other West African countries, Côte d'Ivoire, go to Côte d'Ivoire, go to Togo. So it wasn't about, there were no external shocks. It was about to what extent
But I think
external shocks impacted.
the admission is important. If you admit, so that we don't add the extent to which.
But Prof, where I disagree with you is, it's not. It has always been admitted. No one said that there was never any external shock. I don't recall hearing anybody. Do you recall?
I feel money.
Anyone in government now saying that, there were no external shocks.
No,
there was no effect.
I think the issue was the manacled, explanation.
When they were talking about Ukraine, Russia, then people were laughing at those things. Now, well, I have a lot that I can give you later, but that's fine. So that's what Gideon tells us.
Even if it rained in Ghana.
Yeah.
External shock is an we don't live on our line.
Yes.
Things globally
world,
will affect us, obviously. And for me, if we had admitted that earlier on, that would have been fine. But now, CDM calls for unified response to 10% tariffs. And you know what? This is Uganda also, they've reacted, another country. And they have also scrapped the importation of U.S. products. Wow. For me, it's a weakening.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weakening bargaining power. I mean, they decided to slash you on 10%. You decide, okay, let me not take off. I won't take anything from U.S. again. You bring your product. You destroy your economy.
Right.
You have other goods coming in. So they are calling that there should be a response. And that is the first thing they have to do when you see tariffs like this. You go and negotiate. Because the standard, or what they use to measure and to come out with 10%, for me, we don't have a trade deficit. We have recorded trade surpluses over there. So why would you slash 10%? So go and negotiate.
Let me quickly take this message. Godwin says, Ben, the era where public officials were asked by family members about their source of wealth was an era where accountability in governments was held high. This was the era of PNDC and NDC under Jerry, but I think also before. You ask them in which era that was. You can only change the mindset of people when with a political system that has what it takes to hold the leaders of the country to account. And I think the polarization is also so much that if for certain people, even this government, because they have an affinity for the party in power, if something wrong is done, they will actually say, listen, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And same for the other side, because of where their political affiliations lie. And that is a big problem.
That's where, and here's where media should come in. Because theoretically we learn that objectivity is the purest gem of this profession of journalism. But how objective are the media systems in this country? This is a question. We have some media outlets which are MPP without any shred of shame.
Right.
Others are NDC without any iota of apology. So we leave media consumers confused. So this is a time for us to get our act right as media practitioners. Always ensure that we are on the side of rectitude, on the side of accountability, on the side of objectivity.
Right.
So that what our people consume will help them to make the right choices at the right time.
I'll just give you the headlines from the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Circular Economy Project gets boost. SMEs allocated $4.35 million for sustainable plastic waste management. Government explores cheaper power option for Valco. That's according to the sector minister, Amakufibua. No more NHIS statutory payment delays, Deputy Finance Minister. RegSec pulls down illegal structures at Wage Adansum and Ramsar sites. And I hear there's something going on in Kumasi, the Ashanti region as well, on the back of that fire.
Yeah.
Gold Coast Refinery offers government 15% carried interest. And there's enforced textile tax stamp registration laws. That's the ICU, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union. That's their appeal. Well, that's how we cap off the news review this morning. Those who joined the conversation, Kwame Nkrumah Bosio, General Secretary of the CPP, former President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Afeil Money, and we also had Professor Isaac Boadi, who is Dean of Finance and Accounting at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. All of them joined the conversation. Stick and stay. We have more action coming your way in a bit.